So, welcome to the second episode of the 22 Dropouts. We're a podcast and a YouTube show. You can find us on Acast. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search at 22 Dropouts. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and Acast as well. Joining me tonight, the 22, we got Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing?
Yeah, good, mate. What are you drinking tonight, buddy?
I am on the Titanic Brewery, White Star it's called. I'm not normally a fan, but this was actually very, very nice.
Why have you still got your pyjamas hanging on your wardrobe?
Is it not? Do you know what? I'm not even going to warrant it with a response.
What's tonight? We've got a little feature. We are now looking at what we've got for one of our favourite tankards or drinking mugs. So, Chris, tell me what you're drinking out of tonight.
I tried to use a tankard like this.
I'm so glad you had trousers on then, mate.
I tried to use a tankard like
worried
this
for a second.
I tried to use a tankard like this from when I ref the RFU Intermediate Cup final. However, I started pouring my drink and there was a crack in the bottom where the base joins the actual outside. So instead, you've got one from Twickenham from the Premiership final in 2018, the last of the Premiership final.
Oh, well, cheers, buddy. Actually, I do have my tankard tonight. This is one of the ones I got for doing the National Schools final at Twickenham a couple of years back, and I'm a very good mate of mine. I'm on the Old Flyer from Ran Ales, a tiny little brewery, no bigger than my study, to be fair, in Fenton in Stoke-on-Trent. ranales.co.uk if you fancy that. Lovely 6.1%. So cheers, Chris.
6.1% on a Monday.
Yeah, well, it's a bank holiday, mate. Bank holiday. Sammy, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Mike. How are you?
Fantastic, buddy. Say hello, Sammy, to everybody. Go on, give us a wave, Sammy.
Hello.
Hey.
We got there eventually.
What are you drinking tonight, Sammy?
I've got a new regime, so I'm on the water. However, local beer called Just Jane, the same name as the only fine Lancaster bomber that's currently here, based in Lincolnshire. It's brewed and bottled at the Ferry Ales Brewery, Fiskerton, Lincoln, the same company that I had the beer from in episode 1. Very nice.
Very good. Well, cheers to your water, mate. You big deal. There you go. No, we drink responsibly, and if you don't want to drink Monday to Friday, then tank up on the Saturday, Sunday. That's fine. Just remember, Guinness Clear is available. Tom, please tell me you are not going to bring out the Bucks Fizz tonight.
Not tonight. I haven't opened the bottle as a family today. I'm actually on Stowford Press. Gone for a cider today, nice fruity to go with the nice weather.
I would prefer you on Bucks Fizz, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Bucks Fizz there. Very good indeed.
And what do you? Please don't tell me your favourite drinking receptacle is the can.
No, it's not. I have got it in just a normal pint glass. All of my normal glasses and cups from all the various rugby clubs I've been to are all stuck at my address at university. So while I'm back home, I have to make do with what we have in the cupboard. So until we're out of lockdown, stuck on plain old pint glasses nicked from the local pub.
Two fingers.
Two fingers, yeah. Come on, mate. 2 fingers.
2 fingers.
You could have at least made a decent story.
Feeble excuse.
Yeah. So I guess it's because there is limited storage on your daddy's boat, isn't there?
There is, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Sam, over to you.
Right, this is me then, Sam. Okay, the other Sam. All right, yeah. So evening, guys. How you doing? Drinking water out the HSBC Canada Sevens flask. Just part of the gifts that you get when you go over and do tech zone and stuff. So that's my favourite drinking receptacle. And yes, it's on water.
That's only because you need to have hot drinks over there in February, March time in Vancouver. Is a little bit chilly.
No, you need plenty fluids and not just coffee and water.
Oh, I'll let you off then, mate. And Roy, hi, how are you doing, Roy?
Good evening, everybody. I am representing another one of my local breweries tonight. I have a growler from Cycle Brewery, and in there is a nice porter called Jamaica Me Jittery, which is a coffee porter.
Ooh.
And I am drinking it from my favourite tankard, which is from one of my old rugby clubs.
We seem to have lost Lawrence at the moment. Can anybody see Lawrence? Oh, here he is. I've found him again. Lawrence, hi. How are you doing, mate? You fixed the electricity then, dude?
Not yet, really. I'm just using some LED lamp over here.
Now you can't get any drink at the moment over there. So what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, I'm on what scientist term a fluid that has 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, and that's basically water.
Oh, and you've you've got just a plain glass as well, mate.
Yeah, because all my rugby mags are in the university and it's closed, so I had to get back home.
Super. What new tonight? Joining the 22, we've got all the way from South Africa, Richard. Say hello, Richard.
Hi, James. How are you?
Great, mate. Great. What's going on with that hair?
Yeah, it's locked
Just take a look at this picture. Take a look at this picture, Richard. This is what he used to look like when we knew him in Dubai. Oh, isn't he sweet? It's almost like looking at Lawrence's picture from last time. But have a look at this one, because Richard and I know each other, and I know Sam's got a story about Rich that he's going to tell in a minute.
Oh no!
But we bumped into Richard and Willem in the hotel reception on the very first morning, and decided to go for a little stroll, didn't we?
Yeah, not a little stroll, but so basically Mike decided if you can see something, you can walk to it. 5 kilometers later, we still couldn't get at the Birds Island up, so we just stopped and had a beer and went home. Back to the hotel.
And that's, I think, your first. That looks like your first beer ever, actually, in that photograph. Never mind the first one in Dubai.
Luckily not.
Definitely not. But you are quite famous. Did you know that? Now, Sam, tell him why he's famous.
Yeah. Do you want to tell a little story about someone that you might have, well, not might have, you actually red carded, mate, in Dubai?
Oh yes, I heard Mike said you might want the story, but I had the red card here. As you can see, Mike Phillips signed it also. So you all know Mike Phillips. So yeah, I think day 2, my 3rd match. I had 4 cards in that game. Mike Phillips just went in with a shoulder to the head of another player. I didn't give a shit who he was. Actually, I'm too young. I just pulled the card and sent him off. In the change, Sam was, who gave Mike Phillips a red card? And I'm like, yeah, it was me. It's no big deal. It's just another player. Then I went to Google. I actually Googled and found out that was a Wales legend.
Yeah, no big deal at all. Only just carded a Lions legend, Mikey Phillips. Can you believe that? Lions legend gets carded by one of the youngest ever referees in Dubai.
And Sam did a little bit of research on Mike Phillips this morning, didn't you, Sam?
Yeah, can you actually believe this? And we know how Mikey Phillips is one of those players, but according to the history, he's never actually had a red card before, so it looks like Bruno. And yeah, you actually giving a guy a card. That's top draw stuff. I tell you one thing.
Great, mate.
That's great, isn't it?
You've got there with that signed red card there, mate. Absolutely lovely memento.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And we've also got with us, well, it says Daryl and Melissa on my screen, but I'm hoping it's Daryl. Say hi, Daryl.
Hi there, guys. How is everyone?
Hey, how you doing, Darryl?
Fantastic, mate. You?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Yeah, well, the reason it's Daryl and Melissa is because we have to share the account. So, you know, she set it up. So trust, I wouldn't take her name
You
off
know
it.
it's free, don't you? You don't have to share. It is free. So, what are you drinking tonight, Daryl?
There's only one beer that comes from Suffolk that's any good. That's cool.
Oh,
Good shit.
very nice.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not normally a home drinker, but now, of course, well, actually, I am a home drinker. When I'm at home, there's only one drink to drink, which is wine, of course. And but so now I'm having to drink it out of a can. I don't really have a special glass at home, so you know, I am being uncouth tonight and taking it from the can when I can.
Well, cheers to your special can and your local brew. And
You can't beat it.
So, Daryl, just tell us a little bit more about what you do.
What I do, so I am an assistant referee for the PGMOT in England. So the professional game team provide match officials to Premiership, Championship, and European. I've been an assistant referee now for a lot of years, probably about 16, 17 years, and done something like 600 to 700 games in the National League, in professional rugby. So yeah, I'm in the twilight of my career, as I keep getting told regularly, and these grey hairs are not there because I died there naturally.
We've got another photo of you, mate, and that's looking right down. It's a good job you haven't got a bald spot like me. Have a look at this photo. That was you on the Sevens tour with us last year.
I can't see
orange,
that.
Mate.
I can't see that one.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, actually,
the magic of TV, mate.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here, guys.
Oh,
nice to meet you all.
And you, mate.
And we've also got straight out of Broadmoor or Belmarsh or something tonight. Ian's joining us. First time he's been free for a while, isn't it, mate?
It is. I've been a bit busy, yeah.
Mate, what is that? You're rocking that haircut, aren't you?
I like that. It was so me and the missus had. She's an hairdresser, so we had a discussion about whether I should have it done.
Doesn't show.
We had a discussion about it, and then we compromised and did what she wanted, so she shaved it all off.
When are you going to get your own back?
Practice.
At least he knows where he stands.
Yeah.
Chris, we all do, mate. We all do. Yeah, every married man on this group now is nodding.
Oh,
we
yes.
all know where we stand. So, I guess you're probably not drinking tonight, given what's going on in your work.
No, I am currently on a cup of tea. If you can see my mug, it's the Rugby Aficionados mug. The reason I've got that tonight is because I was the first one I got out the cupboard. But I've also got some H2O as well, should we need it.
Good stuff, mate.
And on your photo, you look really, really professional, standing there in your nice RFU top. But as soon as he could at the Chester Sevens, take a look at this photo. He was there hobnobbing with the good and the greats of the game. Look, the good and greats of Sam and Chris. And there's this other bald bloke at the end. I think his name might be Phil Greening, but I don't know why he's in the photo.
You could have taken a photo when my eyes weren't closed.
Fight him off, Mike.
Now, before we go and take a break, guys, it is a difficult time for a lot of people. We're all stuck indoors. That's why this podcast and show started, is just simply because we got bored and we wanted to have a beer together. So we're looking after our mental health or mental health of somebody around us anyway. So I just want to reiterate the message of stay at home and save lives. We're going to take a short break now, but we'll be back right after this. Now Now, another sleeping giant of rugby. We know that from last week that Rugby USA, or USA Rugby, has been in the doldrums with its finances. And then it decided it wanted to make the headlines again this week when it announced that we were going to have a draft. And all the way from San Diego, joining us tonight, our special guest is JD, who's the high performance manager for USA Rugby. Hi, JD. How are you doing?
Good, mate. How you guys doing?
Yeah, fantastic, mate.
Not bad, dude.
So, what's all this draft about, mate?
So we've got what's our third iteration, if you would, of a professional league in the US. You know, our first early kind of 2000s was the Super League, then progressed into pro rugby. Unfortunately, pro rugby's only around for 1 year, and it seems now that fortunately we've got Major League Rugby has seemingly got the recipe right. So this is born out of Major League Rugby and what we have in the US, and it's a little bit different, as you can imagine, around the world. But from an eligibility standpoint, there's an amateurism component of collegiate sports. So you can imagine that once a person declares for a draft similar to the NFL, NBA type thing, obviously they lose their collegiate eligibility. Same thing goes in rugby, even though we're not to the standard of our other NCAA sports. So what it is a way to kind of clear up some of the confusion, and to have a mechanism, if you would, that players can put their name in the ring and they're able to be selected for a club. So that's the kind of theory or the gist of it. Obviously, in terms of the practicalities component, there is some things that make sense for having a draft, and then the other side of the coin is there's some things that are going to need to be workarounds as well, as you can imagine.
So, what's the draft trying to achieve?
So, simply put, it's twofold. It's allowing players that may have not necessarily been on the radar or identified by Major League Rugby programs or franchises to put their hand up. The second thing, I think, from a continuity standpoint, that general managers and head coaches are able to kind of future-proof their teams a little bit better. As you can imagine, it's been very reactionary. These are the players we're going to grab. We go after them year on year. And we're looking at purely the graduating seniors. Now what they're able to do is look down a little bit earlier, find out those players who they have in their system, and then hopefully, in theory, be able to develop a little bit better of a robust playing pool. Because in the early years, what we were having was, general managers that were potentially over-recruiting or under-recruiting certain positional groups. And as you can imagine, that's just all trial by fire. So, in my opinion, for what it's worth, is that, it is twofold: to help alleviate some of the stresses on general managers and the actual perpetuity of programs. But the second piece is actually there, and the greater scope of it is giving opportunities for players that feel that they may not have been seen by an MLR club, or they have to bang down the door themselves.
Okay. Chris, you wanted to ask JD something on this.
Yeah. Matt Friday's been quite vocal about sort of his hesitation with the MLR and how the MLR can work closer with the Sevens program nationally. What do you think this means for some of the? What do you think this means for the Sevens program in the States?
Yeah, so there is, as you can imagine, there's a point of contention there with it, which is the fact that a lot of what we have to do with anyone that works within the US, and we hope that we're aligned. So we hope that we're pulling in the same direction. So obviously, for the pathway programs and for what Mike's trying to advocate is the development of American players that will go on and represent the US. As you can imagine, the flip side, what I kind of alluded to before, was the fact that when you draft someone, you are drafting their rights if they do accept that contract. you know, from USA Rugby's standpoint, you know, we have a sanctioning agreement with Major League Rugby. We are looking to work through a more kind of formalised MOU and some addendums that would actually allow and advocate for the I guess, if you would, the ability to sign those players that have been identified in the sevens pool. An issue that I believe Mike's kind of you know, question is, you can imagine a really talented young sevens player that's coming through the ranks, if they jump in the draft. Now remember, you have to put your name forward in the draft. It's not like you can just pick off a kid and say he's ours. So the player itself has to nominate themselves forward. And then obviously from there, they actually have to accept that draft. So there is still, it's not, you know, it's not just grabbing players and holding them without, you know, a structure or a give and take. But, you know, you can imagine Geezer's concern, though, is the fact that some teams may stockpile quality future players. And you know, the other piece there is that we want to make sure that players are informed in terms of how the whole system works with their rights. Because, again, the last thing we want to do is lead a player down a situation that might not be suitable for them. You know, a young, emerging, you know, 5'8", for example, or fly half, that's going to a club that has three really quality 10s, and they'll be lucky to get a few minutes playing in their academy. So there is that management piece there of our talented players, and especially in some key positional groups that you can imagine that most tier 2s are struggling for. And for us, it's halfbacks, 9s and 10s, you know, type 5 boys as well. But those halves that do matriculate through end up, you know, being a part of the sevens program, which has been pretty successful.
Yeah, JD, mate, honestly, and I think, you know, some of the other guys will probably agree here, but I said, you know, out loud years and years ago, before, you know, Scotland went over there and got spanked by the US a few years back, that I think USA Rugby, honestly, it is waking the sleeping giant, because when US proper takes it seriously and all the, you know, the college stuff starts coming through and everything, there's not going to be a country in the world that's going to manage to cope with what the US can do, and not even the top teams, and I'm including New Zealand in that. There'll not be a damn thing they can do. I reckon within 5 years of once you guys actually take it properly seriously, you'll have it. You know, I just can't see any other nation being able to cope.
No, I mean,
that's been up there, mate.
We've definitely got the athlete pool. As you can imagine, that I mean, just look at any of the sports. I mean, I think that, you know, the issue that we do, as you can imagine, run into, just, I mean, and think about where all this kind of come from here is think about your best players that may have went football, may have went and played, you know, Australian rules, rugby league type thing. The best players aren't actually playing the sport. Sorry, let me phrase it. Not the best players. The best athletes aren't playing the sport between that 18 to 22, 23, which we do know is that kind of clutch time in terms of that accelerated development of players. So you can imagine that for us, you know, we want to widen the scope of players at 16 and 17, give them great opportunities before we lose them to going to play American football, going to basketball, and then be able to bring them back into the system and then fast track them back through. But you can imagine for us, though, again, and it's not a knock on our current crop of, you know, collegiate players. We've got some extremely talented players, is that sometimes the width and the scope of the country is actually quite overwhelming, whereas, you know, but, you know, for the Scots, you know, you can centralize in 2 locations. You can push people from borders everywhere to go to, you know, your 2 hubs and develop.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's 50 states with 50 different opinions, and it's sometimes it's like herding cats.
You've definitely got a job on your hands. That's without, you know, even can't even think of how difficult it's going to be or what you have got to get together to actually put everything together. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's literally waking the sleeping giant. And I don't know whose bright idea it was, but I think we should have just kept them there.
Give him another pint, put him back to bed. Yeah.
No, I know it's only lunchtime over in San Diego, mate, and we normally toast with responsible drinking over here. What are you drinking today, considering it is 25 past midday?
Mate, it's actually just a coffee, unfortunately, to let you down, boys.
And is it in your favourite mug?
It is actually, yeah. Got a nice little Barcelona mug there that's proudly sporting that the missus brewed up for me. So yeah, sorry to disappoint, boys.
I know you've got to leave us now. So cheers from all of us. And we look forward to welcoming you on the show again soon, mate. Take care.
Cheers, fellas.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys. Have a good one.
Roy, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so it is. What JD didn't touch on too much when he was talking just then was the situation the draft puts him in as he's basically a high-performance manager, high-performance scout for the Sevens program. And so the potential here is for the top college players to enter into a draft to go to the MLR, which is a totally separate entity to USA Rugby. So now he's in competition with with the MLR for players. And this whole situation is mirrored right across the country right now with all the uncertainty that's been created by USA Rugby going into bankruptcy. You've got so many different organizations doing, the easiest way to describe it is a land grab, a territory grab, or they're all trying to protect their own little fiefdoms. I mean, as educators, we can't educate right now because USA Rugby is recognized by World Rugby, and as educators, we're all part of USA Rugby. So World Rugby won't let us educate because our governing body doesn't really exist. And then in the news this week, we get word that there is talk of a second professional league being started in the country. So it's just there's just so many different things going on. It's difficult to keep track of who's doing what to whom right now.
Just to confirm, is MLR a completely separate entity to USA Rugby?
Yes.
Right. Okay. That makes more sense then.
Can he not pull players if they have an international break during the fixtures to go off and complete in sevens? Or
they have not got any type of agreement like you do in England right now, where there's an international window. There is, as of right now, that I'm aware of anyway, there's no agreement between the MLR and USA Rugby. But USA Sevens are professional Sevens players. They basically operate as a separate business year round.
So the USA Sevens then, is that, did I get that right? That's a completely different entity to MLR and USA Rugby.
USA Sevens is part of USA Rugby. MLR is a totally separate entity altogether. They are not part of USA Rugby. They are a separate business model. It is professional. All the teams are privately owned, and the MLR is its own business entity.
So the USA Sevens, does that mean they'll be able to compete on the circuit then, if even though the Chapter 11's in progress?
Chapter 11 right now allows USA Rugby to go through a reorganization, which means a part of that reorganization is their two professional teams, the 15s, more than two. I mean, 15s men's, 15s women's, 7s men's, 7s women's can still operate. So the large amount of funding that is coming from World Rugby to keep USA Rugby afloat is probably primarily directed at keeping the pro teams afloat, the national teams afloat.
I think it's one of those situations that is just going to keep riding and riding. I think there's going to be a lot more information and a lot of changes before it gets sorted, without a doubt.
Yeah, as long as they're allowed to remain in Chapter 11 and go through the reorganization, there is a whole scheduled plan of reorganization that is laid down, and that's what's going through approval in the courts right now. As long as that is accepted by the bankruptcy court, then we will see a slow emergence. Well, hopefully not too slow. The timeline is pretty specific and pretty quick as to what they have to do to survive and come out of it.
Roy, just wondered actually, USA Rugby, so I mean, at the end of the day, take all the other international countries, like England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France, when South Africa and New Zealand, all those countries that, when rugby turned pro in 95, 96, really USA Rugby are still playing catch up on that. So
absolutely,
all the countries that have had that all that time to get things in the right order, some countries still haven't got in the right order, and we know who they are, but we won't mention them. And at the end of the day, USA Rugby is going to go through a lot of turmoil and a lot of things to get everything in line to make it work, and it's going to take time, money, and a huge effort from everyone.
That's very true. I mean, up until very recently, a larger percentage of the players in the national team still amateurs playing for clubs throughout the country. With the emergence of MLR, with the emergence of the national team on a slightly more higher footing internationally, making it into the top 20. I think where they 16th or 17th ranked now. A lot of the players are being recognised and picked up, and are getting contracts, around the world. So they play, in England, in Wales, Scotland, in Japan. So they're getting professional experience. Now we have the MLR, which is, so a lot of those players have come home to support the MLR and are playing in country.
USA Rugby and everybody involved in it has got a massive task in hand, and it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time to get it right. And countries that are well ahead of the game are still not even there yet. So
yeah, I mean that's we started off talking. Yeah, we started off talking with JD saying, USA is the sleeping giant. We've been hearing that for 20-something years. It's how many times do we have to kick this giant to wake it up? It's hopefully this is the sizable, the size 12 boot that was needed to give them the impetus to get it right.
Yeah. Best of luck, mate. Honestly, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all hope that USA Rugby is going to come out much bigger and much stronger. I think it'll be wonderful for the game as a whole. And I'm sure we'll hear from Roy, JD, and a few other guys over there in the coming weeks as well. But now it's time for the rumour mill. A few of the things we said last week came true. Some of them didn't, but some of them did. Sammy, come on, tell us about your rumour last week. It's been in the Times, hasn't it?
It was. I did rather suspect this article that I read on the April Fools, but it is true now. I read on the Gilbert website this morning that they've teamed up with a company called Sportable, and they've launched the first smart rugby ball. Made its first appearance at the O2 in London for the Rugby X competition held earlier this year or late last year. Now, the technology is used to capture ball carriers, longest, also shortest if you're one of the big boys up front. Fastest passing spin rate and hand time on kicks. So it's a really vital tool that can be used in training and help enhance the game if they want to take it more technological if they want to. But various people have got a quote from Douglas McDonald, CEO of Sportable, said it was fantastic to the supercharged Rugby X tournament. See the innovations that we have honed over the past 4 years, live in action at such a major event. With Sportable, we want to rejuvenise the way that people engage with the sport, both on pitch and off pitch.
It's something that Gloucester have looked into as well, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, no, it's saying that when I've been speaking with some of the other coaches, when I've been coaching within the DPP, I know that Gloucester have looked into it, using it in training. Also, they have the offer of using it for games, but the issue is there's certain sensors that you have to have, and it would take every single Premiership club to get those sensors introduced. and put up around their grounds to be able to use it properly. So something that is already out there, they're already talking to clubs about it, so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes.
Tom, while you're at it, now one of the things that didn't make our edit last week is Tom had a rumour about Johnny May, in that there was a potential for Marland Yard to go from Sale to Leicester and Johnny May to go the other way. But as of a couple of days ago, things have changed, haven't they, Tom?
They have indeed, and as I've seen all over Facebook and Instagram, Johnny May is coming home. So back to King's Home. So if everyone gets to Johnny
That was very, very cringy, mate. I'm not gonna lie. Jesus.
very cringy, but it's going all over the place. So yeah, Johnny May's moving back from Leicester to the Gloucester club where he spent his time in the academy. So sort of the club that kind of brought him up, and he said himself that with him now leaving Leicester, there was no other club that he wanted to look for. He knew exactly where he wanted to go, and he's come straight back. There is, however, a bit of controversy around this. Obviously, with the Premiership season being
controversy.
Yeah, just a little bit. With the whole season being postponed at the moment and not sure when it's going to finish, Johnny May and most other contracts as well are due to start from the 1st of July. So it'll be interesting to see when the new Premiership games get played, with the remaining fixtures. There's been actually some talk. A lawyer has been talking, Richard Kramer, saying that it'd be very difficult for these clubs. There's nothing really out there which outlines for this kind of situation. Some players and some clubs will probably say that they had him for this current season, so therefore they want to keep him for the whole of the rest of that season. But as far as clubs such as Gloucester will be concerned with Johnny May, they're going to start paying him from the 1st of July, so they'll want him playing with them and training with them from then. So it's going to be really difficult. I'm sure that the Rugby Players Association and the RFU, along with Premiership Rugby, will be having lots of talks about how they can resolve this, but we will wait and see what happens here.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be a suck it and see it, isn't it? Now, Chris, you've got something from World Rugby, haven't you?
Yeah, so Agustin Pichot has announced he is running for World Rugby chairman in next month's election, and he's been backed by some high-profile names, including Sir Clive Woodward. Pichot was Beaumont's vice chairman, but he's decided that he wants to run for chairman after he's going to be Beaumont is replacing him with Bernard Laporte from French rugby. Pichot has come out and said it's time to think of a sport where professional and commercial income is becoming a true benefit for all, by empowering rugby's growth around the world and by moving on from the time where those benefits were for just a few. He's also said every single boy and girl playing the game must be our priority, our true obsession. He really, really wants, from what I've seen, to grow the youth game, implement rules, implement new laws and new values that help to promote the youth game and protect younger players as well.
Doesn't he want a video game?
He does, right. So this is where, so as someone who plays video games, my first console was a PlayStation 2, and I stand to the statement that Rugby 06 was the best rugby game to ever be put out. Ever. That's because
Tom disagrees.
For me, it's always been John Olomu.
Rugby 06 was the best game going. But that's because Rugby 06 was actually backed by EA Sports, and it's never been backed by them since.
I think I've opened up a can of worms.
Standard of rugby game. They tried to bring out Rugby Challenge. I think it was 3 or 4 in 2017, and it was dreadful. The graphics were worse than they were in 2006.
Okay. You see, this is why I don't have a games console.
In Chris's opinion, Mariat.
Oh, come on, mate.
No, who's heard about George Cruz going to Japan?
I heard about that a couple of weeks ago, I thought.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're behind the curve, Mike.
God, at this rate,
Has he
even
ever
Ian
been in
Farrell will
front?
be ahead of me.
Savage, yeah.
He's never been in front, mate.
I think it must have been Lawrence who broke this story, and it's just taken a while to arrive on his internet.
That's why.
Is Lauren still with us?
Lawrence is,
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Yeah,
there must be some rumours coming out of Kenya, mate.
Probably
Yeah.
the decision I've just told you of the clubs trying to question the decision Kenya Rugby Union made. They actually said in a club written to all the club chairman and to the Kenya Rugby Union chairperson that if the union doesn't give them the consent or the decision that they want, of which is to suspend the rugby still further notice, because it was too early for them to call off the games. So they might head to a sports tribunal and sue Kenya Rugby, hopefully.
So the rumour mill continues, and back into English rugby, and Daryl's got some news that might affect TV in the Championship next year.
Yeah, rumours are that Channel 4 may be bidding for Championship rugby rights. Currently, Sky takes selected games, but there is a rumour that Channel 4 want to improve their rugby offering. Obviously, Premiership and all the other games they have access to, but with us playing in the Championship next year, could be prospects. So let's watch this space.
It's about time the Championship actually got some publicity.
Sorry, Darryl.
Yeah.
Does Sky take their quota of Championship games plural? Because I thought they usually only take one a year, don't they?
They do take more than that. But interestingly, the Championships, the Green King sponsorship finished at the end of, or would have finished at the end of this season. So we'll wait to see what happens. If obviously there's a TV rights issue, then there'll be a sponsor sitting on top of that as well. So,
is there any rumours going around about who might be taking that on, or a Green King thinking of extending that deal?
I don't know. That's not. I haven't heard anything about whether they're going to extend it or not.
So, what else have you got from the coalface, Darryl?
No real start date yet from when the Premiership thinks it's going to kick off. All I did hear is that before they can go back to play, the clubs have told the RFU they want 2 clear weeks to get the players conditioned and back into shape.
That makes sense,
doesn't it?
How do you think Saracens are going to get on in the Championship? Do you think that they'll put out full strength first team squads, or do you think they'll bring through some of the academy players?
I think they'll mix it up slightly. If they're playing, depending on who they're going to play, everybody, of course, will want to have a pop at them. But in theory, they should be one of the strongest teams in the Championship. But other sides have strengthened their squads this year, so there are going to be some close games. I think it will really depend on who they're left with at the end of the season.
I can't wait for them to come up to Nottingham away and see the changing rooms there. I'm pretty sure they're worse than Bath, and that's saying something.
I think the best away game that Saracens will have, I think, is going to Hartbury away. I reckon that there will be the whole of the Gloucestershire taking that 10 minutes.
So here's a question then, Darryl. Out of the, and we put as many riders on this as you want, personal or whatever. Best and worst for you changing rooms in the Championship this season.
Let me rate it by the sandwiches that you get delivered in the changing rooms. That might be a better way to put it.
Stuff.
Top of the league are definitely Bedford. Sandwiches and Mr. Kipling cakes and coffee, always there. Followed closely by Jersey, where there's always a jar of sweets as well. And,
very nice.
So we tend to raid that before we leave. And then you get, when London Scottish, you get a Tesco meal deal, which is pretty good. So that'll be interesting to see what Richmond do next year, because previously they never gave you sound. Generally, referee changing rooms vary. You kind of get used to them. I wouldn't really say which is the best and which is the worst. Tom's already said Bath is pretty tiny, which it really is, especially when there's 7 people in there, as there was when I was there earlier in the season with Barnsley. Sam is definitely the way to judge. Say that again, sorry, Sam.
And what you're trying to say is you're not putting your neck on the chopping block by saying a team is worse than them.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Anybody who knows me is that I like my food pre-match, so I'm definitely going to judge it by the sandwiches that are on offer.
Yeah, get your priorities. You're quite right, mate.
Yeah.
One thing I've heard from Newcastle is that they found it quite hard, because most teams the game's lost after 60 minutes and they tend to give up. But in the Championship, there's that sort of amateur mentality still going to the play for the full 80 minutes. Now, do you think that the Saracens are going to find that hard?
Yeah, I think it will certainly be different. There'll be some battles. Some of the pitches they'll play on will be very interesting, because they're not used to playing on pitches which hold more water. And some of them generally do. Some of them are more uphill, as the Bedford Hill is notorious. And you can go to Jersey, and if it's been raining, it can be that pitch there can be quite heavy. So they may not be used to playing on some of them surfaces. So I think they'll find a number of challenges when they get down.
But they can't wait for a trip abroad, can they? All the way to Jersey.
I think all of the teams are looking forward to welcoming them. And obviously, for a lot of players going to play at Allianz or whatever it will become, that would probably be the pinnacle of their career, to play a professional game of rugby there. So that's important to look at that.
Cool. Now, Richard, what's been going on in South Africa with a former Bok deciding that recreational drugs are good?
Yeah, I read this morning, Joe van Niekerk, he said World Rugby should really be more lenient on the recreational drugs. Even stated that he feels after a long hard game, beer is very bad for you. So rather endure and allow players to go at it, and after the game have a joint or something like that. He said it's helping with recovery and health, and it trust a South African to say that. So in my opinion, I feel it's really not a level playground then. You're allowing more of the senior players to use something that the junior players can't. So it's also going to go about money, who can get what. I feel keep the playground level, don't allow any of the recreational drugs. If you want something, and do it the right way. Recover, use the weeks you have, get off, spend time with the family or such. Don't try to put your career at risk and use something that's at this moment against the regulations.
Very interesting. Here in the States, the NFL are talking about taking marijuana off the banned list.
Really?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of issues last season, especially in the NFL, with players taking marijuana. And there's been a lot of uproar with the Players Association in the NFL regarding marijuana.
Well, a lot of it now it's not so much marijuana at the moment, it's the CBD oil and whether it's got THC in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's got THC, it hits you the same way as marijuana does. So, that's where the controversy is coming from.
I think Nicky Benson just needs to stick to a bride, doesn't he, Bruno?
Sorry?
It wasn't Nick Bendon.
Just needs to sit with a bride.
Nick Benden's a different rumour, mate.
Rumour, mate.
I think for the purposes of the lawyers, we should point out that Nick Bendon has not said anybody should take recreational
That's
drugs.
got to be 2 fingers. I know he's only on water, but that's got to be 2 fingers, surely.
2 fingers. That's go bury your head in the sand. The Lincolnshire sand. Right. I don't know where to pick this back up from now and where I can edit that out.
Moving on to Nick Bendon.
Oh no! You got to keep it in. You got to keep it in. That's what makes it the show.
Yeah, it's whether we get sued, mate.
Moving swiftly on to Nick.
So yeah, moving on to Nick Bendon.
Oh, fantastic intro.
He has gone to announce his retirement from rugby. Now, Nick joined Claremont in 2014 from Bath, where he spent 9 seasons. And he has said that he was hoping that he could put in some good performances towards the end of the season and hopefully pick up another 1-year deal with another club, which clearly meant that Claremont were not going to extend his contract. And on the basis that he's not going to have that opportunity, he has now said that it is with regret and not a decision he wanted to make, but he is going to have to retire from rugby pretty much with immediate effect. Anybody got anything else now that we've probably just created a legal minefield tonight?
I do have something, but just give me 2 seconds. Yes, very quickly. Tom Rees, a former Wasps player, during this whole pandemic, it's not really a rumour mill, but it's more sort of good uplifting news, is now, he's also a frontline NHS doctor. He's taken it upon himself to go out and, put his services out there for the general public during this time. So I think that sort of embodies what our sport's all about. Yeah. Yes, it's a professional game and everything, but at the end of the day, we're all about the community and looking after everyone else. And I think Tom Rees has really, really embodied that in what he's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
well done, Tom.
You got to respect that.
Yeah, and cheers, Tom Rees. Look,
also, I
we
think
said it.
Pointing out really good use of the jazz hands. Well, Chris mentioned that as well. There was lots of that going on. Wasn't
there? Old joke, but it never ceases to amuse me. Now, at the start of the show, we did do a little bit, and we talked about why we set this up. And it literally was just a few guys who were all rugby refs wanting to have a virtual beer during lockdown as a way of, I suppose, preserving our sanity a little bit. Within our group, there's probably nobody who understands this more and the pressure that some people put themselves under than Sammy up in Scunthorpe, is there, mate?
Yes, this year, unfortunately, one of the first team squad did commit suicide. As a club, we've tried to raise 50k for Samaritans and a local charity called One for the Lads. We have donations from you name it, every club in National 2 North and virtually every club seen the reach, and it's been great. Unfortunately, we have lost another player from the third team 6 months later, so it's been quite sad. But we've had a local pastor come in to see the club, and we've held a mental health evening. Now, obviously, that was before the lockdown. Now, after the lockdown, we're going to continue that and hopefully continue the process. And if anyone needs to speak out, make sure you speak out. And if anyone says they're okay, ask them again, because it's easy to say it once, but it's not easy to say
Absolutely.
it twice. 100%. Totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think it's really important, and that's why we're all here, is to support each other, to have a laugh, to take the mickey out of each other, but also to be there when the guy next to us needs it as well. So guys, go on, Sam.
to back that up with what young Yates is saying, a few years back we lost our international prop and Navy. He was the most capped prop Navy for the armed forces. A guy called Kyle Mason. And we set up a group in Malta called TRI, which stands for Together Repair Yourself. And we have people from all over the world that have joined our group, and we've got people that have private chats, one-to-one, where they just need to have a chat with someone. And we put messages up through difficult times and things like that, so that people can actually feel confident just to get out there and have a chat. In fact, some of the Malta rugby referees, we have our kit on the shorts, we have the logo on our shorts, and the other top we've got the logo on the back of the top as well, just so we keep promoting the fact that, that you can actually talk, you can actually, say the things that you need to say, and everybody will help you and get back, just be there and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid. Now, guys, before we finish tonight's show, we've got a couple of minutes left. Can we all just say a huge goodbye to Lawrence, please? Because the lights have gone off in Kenya again.
Stop pedaling again.
The only way Lawrence is going to know that we finished tonight is when he watches this back on YouTube and he sees us all waving to him. Night, Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence. I'm good night, mate.
In fact, he's just messaged to say Africa is terrible. I don't think it's quite that bad, but okay. Send my love to all my age mates there with a big fist bump. So fist bumps to you as well. Richard, is Africa terrible?
Not at all. You can go north. Then it can be terrible. I don't know. South, it's fine.
Ian, can you send your missus down to Richard to do his hair?
Yes, of course I can. Yeah, no worries. Look like this though.
I did notice she made an appearance earlier on.
Yeah, it's because she's galactically stupid, mate. She thought she couldn't be seen.
So that's you and Ramage that have had an uninvited guest in tonight.
What can I say? Small apartment,
As long as she's not shouted at you tonight, that's okay. And if you don't,
to be fair, I'm just glad she came out fully clothed.
Everybody else just
that could have been well interesting.
I don't know whether that's a reference to the fat what she was doing or whether that's just an insight into the Ramage household. Goodness knows.
No. Believe me, we don't. Although the weather sometimes gets just as hot as Roy's. In fact, we're up at 20 degrees now, Roy, as well. Here, mate.
Wow.
I know. Sunday morning.
Well done, Roy. That's how impressed he was. Wow.
I'm having it with sunglasses so I can see freaking Roy's forehead, man. He's burnt to a crisp.
I tell you what, though, I'd love to just put a picture of me and Ian together, just so that we can now compare foreheads. The difference is the difference is nobody's cut mine to make mine look like this.
I've been growing it for nearly 4 weeks.
Look, it's not 4 head anymore. It's about a 7 head.
You've been growing it for about 4 weeks, though, to be fair. So
yeah, this is long, actually.
It's very long for you.
So before we go, gents, has anybody got any other nuggets of interesting conversation that they would like to share, or shall we just take the mickey out of somebody else?
Mike's ball, that's about all I've got to add.
What was that?
Mike's got a ball patch, that's about all I've got to add.
That's not interesting anymore. It's old. Just remember, Sunshine, this is what your hair is going to look like when you're older.
Very soon, by the way, he's going at the moment.
Very soon. Have you seen like my hair? Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's not the length of it; it's how far back it's going.
It's
Whoa!
you see it. You've got to start to go on the back of your crown. Just bend your head.
Yeah. Hey, mate, you'll soon be rocking the full Batman like me here. Look at that. Except you're more like Batwoman than Batman.
Yeah.
Yay.
What is that on your wardrobe behind you? Come on, tell us. What is on that on the wardrobe behind you?
So it's from.
Don't. That's probably his dirty pants.
No. It's a good story. So this is from a camp that I helped to coordinate in the summer for disadvantaged children who wouldn't normally get a holiday. So we put on a week-long holiday camp for them, and this is my T-shirt with like handprints and stuff. In a local area, we're supporting sort of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds who don't know what a holiday is, wouldn't normally get one. So we go out to places, we go swimming, we go to farms. This year we went to Birmingham University.
Yeah.
The bright light of Birmingham University.
Just to do their dinosaur, they've got a dinosaur museum, so we took them there for the day. But yeah, no, it's actually really, it's something that's very close to my heart, actually. So, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well done.
Well, that killed the banter, didn't it?
I thought it was something we could take the piss out of.
Yeah, we were really hoping that, weren't we?
And then it's a nice thing.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, gents, that is all we've got time for. Next week, we're joined by French 7-star Jonathan Legel, and he's going to talk about the impact that the current lockdown is having upon the 7 seasons in the international world, and how he's keeping fit and active, and what's going to happen if we do move London and Paris to September and Hong Kong and Singapore to October as well. Gents, it's been a pleasure as always. Guys, don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Just search @22dropouts. Don't forget to subscribe and like us on Acast for our podcast and YouTube for our show. Any comments you've got, anything that you'd like us to talk about, any rumours for us as well, make sure you pop them in one of our social medias. DMs are always open. But for tonight, from me and from what's left of my 22 after the lights have gone off in Kenya, it is very, very good night. Take care, be safe. Good night, everybody.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.